Hi, mystery writers. Today I wanted to talk about plot or characters, what drives your mystery, and to be honest, it's a little bit of both, but how you go about it um, is going to depend on your writing style. So every story falls somewhere on the continuum between plot and character, and mysteries fall pretty much right in the middle. So you need both of them, plot and characters, to create a good mystery. The mystery needs plot because you're creating a puzzle and you want to make sure that you have all your puzzle pieces in place for solving the mystery, and this story structure demands that you plant clues and keep the villain hidden until the end, and you want twists and you want conflict to build suspense. But a mystery needs characters, especially your protagonist, to guide the reader through the puzzle. Um, think about mysteries that you've read, and the first thing that usually comes to mind is not the puzzle, it's the characters. So as writers, you can think of mysteries as plot-driven stories, which focus on a set of choices the character must make. But if you ask somebody what their favorite mystery is, they'll usually name the sleuth, the detective. Milhone, Vera Stanhope, McGray, Falco. They may even not remember the first or last name of that character, but they're going to remember them. Morse, Poirot, Cadfael, Harriet Vane, Nero Wolfe, Kinsey. They remember the character. And so the character is what connects your reader to the story. And of course, the puzzle's there for each sleuth to solve. But what makes the story memorable is the character. So when you're driving your mystery puzzle, you want a memorable sleuth. So let's start with your sleuth. Because your sleuth leads your reader through the mystery puzzle. They're like a guide, because they pose questions about clues and suspects. And then you can give strength to those characters by giving them strengths and weaknesses, and you put those strengths and weaknesses at odds with other characters. So just a side note, you want to avoid making your sleuth all good. One-dimensional character doesn't really gather your reader's attention. You want your reader to care what happens, so you want to create traits in your character that endear your readers to your protagonist, even when your protagonist makes a mistake. So that emotional punch keeps your readers wondering how your character will rescue himself, and you add emotional tension to the story. Weaknesses and frailties make your sleuth protagonist human. And that's that connection that you make with your readers. He may be a good guy, but he can have faulty motivations. And maybe your sleuth is a bitch when she loses her temper. Your readers engage with a character who struggles with their weaknesses because they feel human. So one thing you want to remember as you're plotting is your sleuth must fail. She doesn't always get it right. He makes bad calls that create even worse situations. So give your character some wrong ideas, a sleuth that always gets it right doesn't challenge your reader. So as your sleuth interacts with other characters, you have multiple opportunities to display strengths and weaknesses and personal opinions. And personal opinions really connect readers with your character. So your goal for your character is to make them come alive so readers care. And then you want to create that puzzle. And this is going to depend a lot on what your writing style is. For instance, Ian Rankin never knows who did it. He never even knows the ending when he starts a story. And so he writes that first draft to discover what happens. That's the way he works. So if you write like that, creating the puzzle, you're going to go back in your second draft and put in the missing pieces of the puzzle, strengthen the plot, because the story framework, the plot, leads your detective and the reader on a discovery journey. And along the way, your detective makes choices about what clues are important, evaluates which suspects to interview, and listens to what those suspects say. And as the story progresses, the detective eliminates suspects as she gets closer to the villain. And along the way, they make wrong choices, which lead to reversals, rethinking, and further discovery choices. And then behind the scenes, the villain works to deceive and divert the detective from the truth. So as you're making up your story structure, you're working with the theme of every mystery, which is unveiling the truth. So planning and writing, I like to plan an overall structure. This is just me, but I'm giving you an example. I like to plan the overall structure, but as I write, things change, characters do things, I come up with a better idea. And so what my original plot, how I originally start out with a plot, is going to shift. Knowing each character, having your character Bible, allows you to use details you need to enliven scenes. And because you've done your background work for the supporting characters, you know how their personal traits can help or hinder your detective on their search for the truth. Then I wanted to give some sample questions which the New York book editors recommend as you write. So for plot, they have these questions, so let me just go through them. All right. What is the character's backstory? What is the character's personality? How was the character's personality shaped by his or her backstory? How does each scene develop the character? What is driving the character's reaction within the scene based on his or her story? How does your character change within the course of the story? And what is the character's internal conflict? What is the character most afraid of? And how would he or she define happiness? So, do you notice that those plot questions are all about character? And then when writing a character-driven story, they suggest, what does your character want to have happen in each scene? Is there tension and conflict in each scene? What action does the character take within each scene? How does this action move the story forward? How does each scene contribute to the overall story? And what is the worst thing that can happen to your character? And how does your character prevent it from happening? And what happens if your character cannot prevent it from happening? and what key events change the main characters in your story. So I thought it was really interesting because the questions to ask for character-driven story are mainly about plot, and the questions to ask for plot-driven stories are mainly about character. So I thought that example really illustrates how we need both, and we definitely need both in a mystery. So to create the balance in your mystery, you want to create character-driven scenes, scene by scene, as they fit inside your story structure. When you work on both story elements, you'll write a mystery that satisfies mystery tropes while engaging readers with three-dimensional characters. So I hope that helps a little bit with the explanation. You really need both. And then just a reminder, I posted earlier today, I posted an article by a private detective talking about his real life as a private detective. I thought it was just fabulous because it counters so many of the private detective tropes that we think about. So if you're writing a story where the main character is a private detective, I highly encourage you to read that because it's going to be a big eye-opener about what it's like for real-life private detectives. Long ago, I worked at a law firm. There were a couple of criminal attorneys, and they used private detectives, and what they did really resonates with what's in the article. So I really suggest that if you have a private detective in your story, whether they're the main character or a supporting character, that you read that article. It's very revealing. All right, I want to thank you all for being here, and don't forget to post your questions, and I will see you next week. And meantime, keep writing.